Hi, welcome to chapter 12. Today we're going to be focusing on leadership. So, when we talk about leadership, we want to try to define what leadership is and who is good at leading or how you can develop into a better leader. But basically, if we're talking about leadership, this is going to be the ability of an individual to influence one or more people towards achieving some sort of goal. And a leader can sometimes be a manager or director, but doesn't have to be someone in the managerial role. Sometimes there are leaders that are non-sanctioned by the organization, but are just good at leading and organizing people. And this could be someone who, is part of a team and takes more of a leadership role, but isn't necessarily management. Now, one thing that is hard to describe is all the traits that make up a good leader. But certainly there are, physical strength, physical postures, body language, social intelligence, intellectual abilities that help distinguish leaders or people of potential leadership. So not everybody has the right command of their body, their voice, their vision, their confidence in a way that's going to inspire other people to follow them. Some people are just kind of, you look at them and you're just like, oh, I don't want anything to do with this person, or as soon as they talk or try to, inspire me, I get the opposite feeling. I don't want to do anything with this or for this person. So that's someone who's not a natural leader. So we do have what we call natural leaders, people who just sort of didn't work at it, but they have the skills and it's easy for them to lead. And there are some people who have to really work at it and develop those skills. But good leaders have a few things in common. One, they have to be able to extrovert themselves in a way that they can project their influence onto other people. They have to show leadership by demonstration, which means they have to themselves be committed, be conscientious, show a level of creativity and flexibility to work with people and get things moving forward. Going back to extravision, this is generally thought of as a big predictor of the motivation to lead. People who want to be with other people, people who want to, speak out and be heard. So this is the characteristic, people who aren't afraid to have a conversation or even argue or try to persuade their point of view. So this is different from agreeability or emotional stability, because although if you're too agreeable or, you may not be passionate enough to inspire people to follow you. Now, building strong relationships, getting people to trust you or believe in your vision or believe in your abilities is another thing that sort of helps leaders become even stronger, right? In how closely people will follow them. So leaders oftentimes are more proactive or have a proactive personality where they're able to influence because they're first, they want to take action. So whether it's in a team meeting or someone in your department, this is somebody that is a first mover. And we talked earlier in earlier chapters about the dark triad. So now the research has indicated that not all the dark triad that we talked about earlier, it's not all bad traits for leadership. So personality traits were optimal or suggested that having too much of these dark triad traits results in ineffective leadership. So sometimes leaders can be a little scary, they can be a little manipulative, but that doesn't always make them bad leaders. Sometimes it works for them. And you could go back to our previous chapters where we talked about that dark triad a little bit more. Now, moving into emotional intelligence and leadership. So another trait that might prove to be effective for leadership is having a high emotional intelligence. It's a core component of empathy. So a leader who's effectively displays and manages emotions will find it easier to influence feelings of others. by both expressing their sympathy and their enthusiasm for good performance, and by using maybe irritation when people fail them or disappointment. So a lot of research has demonstrated people with a high emotional intelligence are more likely to emerge as stronger leaders. So even after taking into cognitive and personality into account. So what this basically means, if you understand your emotions and you're mature about things, you don't give in to petty jealousies, petty squabbles. You know how to utilize and work with other people's emotions to get them to believe in you and follow you and alleviate some of their emotional shortcomings. So emotional intelligence is a clear indicator of someone who's capable of leading. So if you can understand what other people are feeling and work with that, you'll be stronger as a leader. Now, as far as these traits, these are just traits that can predict leadership, and we call it emergence of leaders. They don't distinguish between effective and ineffective leaders. They're just saying that these people have some of the core traits that could make them effective leaders. They could be considered them as a leader. They might need some more training, or they might need some more experience. But it's just trying to look at what could possibly make a leader, somebody a stronger leader. Now, if we look at the behavioral theories of leadership, this is implied that maybe we could train people to be leaders. So these theories result, from many different studies that sought to identify independent dimensions of leadership behavior, beginning with more than 1,000 dimensions possible. The studies that, many people have done in the past narrow the list to two that is substantially account for most of the leadership behavior described by employees, initiating structure and consideration. Let's talk about what we call initiating structure. This is the extent to which a leader defines and structures their role and those of subordinates to facilitate the achievement of a goal. It includes behavior that attempts to organize work, helps to not just organize the work itself, but the work relationships and the goals. So a leader high in initiative structure is someone who is able to assign group members to a particular task, expects workers to maintain a certain set of defined standards of performance, and emphasizes meeting all the deadlines. So that's something that, a strong leader, you're not going to be able to get there unless you have that organizational structure. Now, consideration, as a leader, has the job relationships that are characterized by mutual trust, respect, and employees' ideas in regards to their feelings. So a leader high in consideration helps employees with personal problems, is friendly, approachable, treats employees as equal, express apprehension, appreciation, support. So, someone who's considerate or a consideration, this is a leader who has a heart, who has feelings. It's not just using you to get the job done. It's someone who cares about you, cares about your growth at the company, your performance, and values your relationship. So that's a very powerful thing for a leader to have. So if you're working with someone that you trust and you feel they have your back, and when the time is right, they'll give you credit or help you get a promotion, that will make you very loyal. So if you're very loyal to a leader, you're going to follow them with less argument, less conflict, and allow them to initiate a structure that you can contribute to. Now, in summary of these, of different research in this behavioral theories, there is definitely some validity for both the trait and behavioral theories. Parts of each theory can help explain the many, intricate facets of leadership, how leadership emerges, effectiveness of leadership, and identifies the exact relationships between leaderships and employees. And it's not an easy thing to get done. So it's the first difficulty is correctly identifying whether a trait or behavior predicts a certain outcome. So they have the ability to be extroverted and they have the ability to organize. Does that result in attaining goals? Second is exploring the combination of traits and behaviors that lead to certain outcomes. Which has the most influence? Which trait or behavior has the most influence of achieving that goal? The third challenge is to determine the causality of traits to behaviors so that we can better predict how more desirable leadership outcomes are going to be made. So it's very difficult to really say these qualities resulted in these outcomes. And the final challenge is complicated by the varieties of contexts and situations leaders are often in. Some leaders may have the right traits and display the right behaviors, but still fail consistently. So a lot of context matters, and there's still a lot about leadership that can't be defined, that can't be identified. And that's back to my theory is I know a leader when I see one because the way they can inspire me, the way they hold themselves, the way they organize the work, the way they get people to trust them. It's a very complex interaction between many different traits and behaviors. Now, if we look at the contingency theory of leadership, Fred Fielder proposed that effective group performance depends on the proper match between a leader's style, the interacting with subordinates, and the degree in which the situation gives control to the leader. So leaders have different styles, and everybody's unique, and there's no real two styles that are identical, but leaders definitely have different styles of getting things done. And the first step in this contingency model is identifying the leadership style. And this theory believes that a key factor of leadership success is the individual's basic leadership style. According to this model, the individual's leadership style is assumed to be stable or permanent and refers to the degree in which the leaders approach leadership from a task-oriented or relationship-oriented perspective. I myself, as a leader, I was more relationship-oriented rather than task-oriented. So I felt as a leader, I often try to develop a relationship with the person, get them to understand that, there's a job to be done and that, the person is important, but we have to get the job done. So really, a lot of times people would listen to my guidance and my leadership based on the relationship we had developed together, which takes time and takes a lot of talking and, takes some team building exercises or some, communication outside of work. But basically, if you have a strong relationship with the people that you're leading, they're more likely to follow, trust you, listen to you, and even when they don't want to do something, maybe they'll do it because they value the relationship you cultivated with them. Now, if we look at the contingency dimensions, leader-member relations, task structure, and position power. So leader-member relations, the degree of confidence, trust, and respect that members have in their leader. This, I think, is very critical. If you trust your leader, you respect the leader, hopefully maybe you like your leader and you want them to succeed, and you work hard for them, that is important. But nobody's going to do this unless the leader is able to give something back to the member, the employee. A good referral, a good reference, help with getting them promoted or getting a raise. There has to be a give and take in that relationship. Now, task structure, the degree which the job assignments are procedural, is important. And position power, the degree of influence the leader has over power variables such as hiring, firing, discipline, promotion, and salary increases. So if you put somebody in a leadership role and they're not able to hire, fire, dispense discipline, give promotions or salary increases, people aren't going to respect them or really give two hoots what they think or say because they don't have a direct influence on your success. So you need to have a position of power where your leadership and the people's performance that you're leading, you have an ability to influence their future. That would make them much more attentive to you as a leader. So But if someone's only following you for the chance for promotion or a salary increase, that is not going to be a good follower and not going to wind up being a good situation. So the next step to evaluate the situation in terms of these contingency variables, leader-member relations are either good or poor. So task structure is either high or low, and position power is either strong or weak. So Fiedler states that the better the leadership member relationships, the more highly structured the job can be. And the stronger the power position, the more the control that the leader has, the more sway they'll have over their followers. So if we look at this, here's the, we'll call so in this exhibit here, 12-1, Fiedler concluded that task-oriented leaders tend to perform better in situations that were very favorable to them, as well as in situations that were very unfavorable. So this task-oriented leader works out better in both situations. And they predicted that when faced with the category we'll call 1, 2, 3, 7, or 8, the task-oriented leaders perform better. So relationship leaders, however, perform better in moderately favorable situations, categories 4 and 5. So if we look at these categories, and which are basically 8 situations, if we look at the horizontal axis, it's marked with situations that range from favorable, moderate, and then unfavorable situations. So the vertical axis is labeled with the performance and range from poor to good performance levels, and the approximate data from the graph is as follows. The line for task-oriented leaders starts from a good position or good performance under favorable conditions and decreases to poor or moderate conditions, and then increases to good performance under unfavorable conditions. Inversely, the line for relationship-oriented leaders starts from poor performance under favorable conditions and increases to good performance under moderate situations, and then decreases to poor performance under unfavorable conditions. So both lines continue in that same manner, moving forward. So the table below as follows: the performance of leader-member relationship, good tasks, structure, and position are noted in different categories, 1 through 8. So data in the format approaches categories 1 through 8 as follows: leader-member relationships, good, 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 poor, 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 poor. Task structure, high, high, low, low, high, high, low, low. Position power, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. So it's just basically this is just the output of his model trying to put his concept into something visual. Now, if we talk about an SLT, situation leadership theory, this is pretty well researched contingency theory. Now, it focuses on the following: that proposes that successful leaders is achieved by selecting the right leadership style, which is contingent on the level of followers' readiness. In terms of readiness, refers to the extent in which people have the ability and willingness to accomplish a specific task. So that's two sides of the coin. So we have different leadership styles, but we also have how well skilled are your followers and how ready are they able to, or are likely they be successful in completing a task. So that's a very important thing for leadership. It's easy to be a leader in an environment where the work is easy, less stressful, and it's harder to be a leader in an environment where things are a lot more stressful and there's more tension and there's more pressure. Now, looking at this exhibit 12-2, management leadership styles by behavior, working with the situational theory, leadership theory, leaders should choose one of the 4 behaviors depending on the follower's readiness, whether it's participating support, selling, coaching, telling, directing, or delegating. So if followers are unable or unwilling to do a task, the leader needs to give clear and specific directions. If they're unable but willing, the leader needs to display a high task orientation to compensate for the leader's lack of ability, and a high relationship orientation to get them to buy into the leader's desires. Conversely, if leaders are able but unwilling, if followers are able but unwilling, the leader needs to use a supportive and participative style. If they are both able and willing, the leader doesn't need to do too much. So this is basically, so some leaders, they don't always have one style. So even though these different leadership styles are intuitive, leaders sometimes, a good leader can often switch between their style. So a good leader reads their followers, sees what the situation demands, and they may change their leadership style. So these 4 quadrants would be, if you were, sometimes your leadership style may be a combination of these quadrants, or 1, 2, 3, or all 4, depending on, who you're dealing with. You might be different towards different people in your group that you're leading. Now, the quadrants are pretty distinct in label behavior. We all understand what being supportive and participating is in a leadership style. So someone, a leader, you're working with them and you're encouraging them. Selling, coaching is trying to more motivate, get them to buy in and get them to do something. Delegating, this is for followers who have a high capability of getting things done. You really just kind of say, okay, this is what I want you to do, and minimal direction, and they know what they're doing, so just going to point them in the right direction. Telling and directing is what you have to do, where you really have to give a detailed set of instructions. This is somebody who just can't really think for themselves too well. They'll know what they're doing, so you have to, really provide them support to help them. This could be someone who's new to the task that you might be leading, trying to lead to success. Now, if we look at this next slide, the final contingency theories are concern the role that the followers play. So a leader participation model, which talks about the way the leader makes decisions, is important as what they decide. So it says a leader's behavior must adjust to reflect the task structure. So as suggested by the leader participation model, sometimes the situation calls for leaders to play an active role in decision-making that affects the team. So this particular role is the leader has to be more hands-on, is how I would say it. Now, a shared leadership theory takes the idea a step further and suggests that leaders can become an emergent state in which the leadership roles are distributed across followers and are all capable of influencing one another. So this could be a team with no distinguishable leader, but they're all sort of sharing this leadership. So the fellowship theory, this places a heavy emphasis on followers in affecting the success of leadership. So in many ways, followers flip the leadership script and to focus on the followers' capability to put into practice a leadership's vision instead of goals. Therefore, the success of the leader depends heavily on the quality and makeup of the followers they attempt to influence towards a common goal or vision. So leadership's emotions and behaviors can affect or influenced by the followers. So in these 3 models, the leader participation model, this is really where the leader is working along shoulder to shoulder with the followers in the trenches with them to try to get things done. And this often leading by example and working alongside them, feels, the coworkers feel validated and they feel like they're all in this together. Now, a shared leadership theory is more about collectively sharing the role of leadership. So the leader only has to slightly guide and allows the members to sort of also kind of take control. And the fellowship is more of a closeness between the followers and the leader, where you think of Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. You had that tight group of the the Hobbits, that sort of were a fellowship where there was some leadership, but they also were, strongly bound to each other. Okay. So leading in times of crisis. So times of crisis always changes the stage for leadership. And in times of crisis, a leader has to really be transformative, charismatic, and has to step up in a way that when they're barking out orders quickly to get something in a time of crisis, time matters. And when this leadership, someone really can emerge in this state, sort of take control and deliver success and get the confidence of people to follow. This often, if someone is able to brand themselves during a time of crisis, they often will establish a leadership that they could ride out and through non-crisis times. So sort of like leaders that were not well thought of as great leaders, say in the 9/11 situation, Rudy Giuliani and George Bush emerged as stronger leaders out of their acting during this time of crisis. Especially Rudy Giuliani became, at one point, the most well-respected, well-loved mayor of New York, leading us through the crisis of 9/11. Later on, he didn't really maintain that well moving forward. And then you can also look at the leadership in New York during the COVID crisis, where it wasn't as good, and it actually cost some people their jobs because the leadership style just was not well received. Okay. So times of crisis is really where leaders are forged. So leader membership exchange. This theory is going to argue that leaders establish a special relationship with a small group of followers, and these individuals make up, a group, and they're trusted. They get a disproportionate amount of the leader's attention. They're more likely to receive special privileges, and the theory proposes that early in the history of interaction between a leader and a given follower, the leader implicitly categorizes the follower as in or out, and the relationship is relatively stable over time, and the leader that chooses on the basis of the followers' characteristics. So this theory is generally supportive, had some good results, and there's a decent amount of evidence that leaders do differentiate among followers. And these disparities are far from random. And followers in the in-group status have higher performance ratings and engage more helping and better citizens to the whole group work and engagement, and are less counterproductive. So you can kind of get how this model works. The leader sort of gravitates towards people that are better followers, and they become more of a favorite, and they get a stronger connection. And people who are less connected to the leader, whether it's personality traits or just a bad work performance, the leader is going to, it's going to be noticeable who the leader favors, who the leader wants to work with, who the leader trusts. So there is an exchange between the leaders and the members as they start working together and developing. And at some point, the leader should really develop more people into being the in-group, and then maybe transfer or fire people who are in the out-group if they want to be a more effective leader over time. Now, so here are some other things we're going to be talking about as key characteristics of charismatic leaders. So charismatic leaders, or the theory of a charismatic leader, follows that there are attributes that help leaders become extraordinarily followed or effective. And there's certain behaviors that have people will look at these leaders and feel like they have vision, willing to work with this leader. So a leader that can, somebody like Steve Jobs is a leader that has a vision and can articulate it, can express their ideas and for a better future, for better products. And it can translate these ideas into an understandable way for their followers. Personal risk, willing to take on high personal risk, including cost, exchanging in self-sacrifice to achieve a certain vision. So People respect a leader that's putting their job on the line and risking for the potential achievement. Sensitivity to followers' needs. So leaders that are a little bit more empathic and can perceive um, what the other followers need, and hopefully to be there to fulfill some of these needs, to make them feel secure and valuable and validated. And there's unconventional behaviors too. So leaders that engage are perceived as novel or countered norms. Think of this unconventional behavior. Think of the movie. There's a movie with Robin Williams, Dead Poet Society, where he gets up on the desk and he rips the pages out of the book, and he has a unconventional teaching approach, almost like teachers are somewhat leaders in the classroom, and his unconventional, fun, and approach to teaching really inspired leadership and of the students or followers in that group. Now, charismatic leaders how do they influence their followers? Well, one, they're able to communicate in a way their followers can understand what their vision is. They develop a vision statement that they reiterate, and they establish a set of values, what's important to them, what should be important to the team, and they're conveying this sense of courage, conviction. They make you a believer in what they're trying to do. Now, how much of a situation is dependent on this charismatic leader? So charisma appears to be perceived by followers as more of an ideological component. When the environment involves a high degree of stress and uncertainty, people are especially receptive in a crisis. So when people are confused, upset, scared, and someone shows up, I'll show you the way, I'll show you the path to success, follow me. Times are tough, but I'm going to get you through this. This is what sort of can build that charisma, can sort of build that ease, put people's minds at ease, and allay some fears. And, especially in times of crisis, is a very important skill to have. Now, the dark side of charismatic leaders is that they might not be in your best interest. So if you think of cult leaders, there are some leaders that they may have more personal goals rather than looking to achieve or produce organizational goals. Sometimes people who are very charismatic may also be very narcissistic, and their behaviors that may be viewed as a charismatic leader really is somebody that's just too into themselves, too focused on themselves. So they may come off as charismatic, but they're really not effective leaders. They're just effective at getting people to look at them and listen to them, but they don't really stand for a leadership with a vision that's going to propel a company forward. Now, there are a full range of leadership models, from laissez-faire, which is sort of a hands-off, to idolized influence. So some are transactional and some are transformative. I'm going to describe each of these. This is just sort of how you can put in, if you're looking activity, active versus passive, effective versus ineffective on the scale. So laissez-faire, this is somebody who is going to be very hands-off. Somebody who is going to be more of a delegator. And that would be, sometimes they're only effective as their followers. Now, if we look at more these transactional leadership, it's contingent on reward. So there's an exchange, a reward for effort, a reward for good performance, management by exception on an active phase, watches and searches for deviation, the rules and standards, takes corrective action. On the passive side, intervenes only if standards are not met. So it's really, we've all had managers probably of these different categories. Now, if it's a transformational leader, now this is someone who's going to provide a vision, a sense of mission, instills pride, respect, and trust. So this is somebody who's really not someone um, going back here, this is just someone who's like, okay, transactional. You do this, you'll get that. You do this work well, I'll give you this. So it's really tit for tat, sort of like what you're getting is what's motivating you to follow this person, and it's usually money or a promotion. Transformative leaders is someone you believe in, like you believe in their ideas. They're inspirational. They motivate you through their focus, their sense of purpose. They often often have a sense of a strong intelligence. They're very rational, good problem solvers. They're able to give individual attention. They're able to, tailor their leadership towards the follower. So transformational is a type of leadership that really picks you up like a wave and moves you forward with a really consistent and wide-based power. Now, integrating, evaluating positive leadership styles. One clear conclusion can be drawn regarding the laissez-faire leadership. You probably should not use it. So it basically, you're doing nothing. You're the manager that sits in the office playing on the computer when you really should be doing something. So it mostly results in social loafing, the followers not doing hard work. It often gets people who don't like you because, this person never works, they don't contribute. And it does contribute to a toxic environment. So being too hands off almost, is a breeding ground for trouble. But, being charismatic, transactional and transformational styles is somewhat trickier. Although all of the styles can be useful in their own right, transformational leaders tend to be, more consistently result in better outcomes. So the charismatic and transactional leadership stacks up to, how does that stack up to a transformational leadership? So you can be charismatic and transactional as a combination, but we really want a more effective leadership style will be transformational, where you're more able to motivate through a vision and have, somewhat closer to a blinder follower, not someone that will only follow you when they know exactly what they're getting out of you and out of the situation. So, thinking again about transactional and transformational leadership, they can complement each other. They can be used together too. So you can switch back and forth between these leadership styles. So they're not opposing approaches to getting things done. It's just transformational leadership builds or can start in a transactional modality. Someone can start out as more of a transactional leader and then progress into a more transformational leadership when the follower gets to know them better and the effort and performance is rewarded in a way that is more transformational to the follower. So many researchers have commented on how the contingent reward aspect of the transactional leadership appears to be, in some cases, can be just as effective as a transformational approach. And the approach really depends on the situation. So in some situations, transactional is more appropriate and works better. In some situations, transformational is more effective. Now, let's look at 5 reasons why transformational leadership is, in general, more effective. 1, effective mechanism. So this is the approach, transformational approach, which is going to promote positive employee moods, positive employee emotions, higher job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and feelings of well-being. So this is basically using your transformational leadership style to put employees in a good position. So they feel in a good mood, they're happy about their job, they're satisfied about their job, they like the organization, and they want the organization to succeed, and they have a general sense of well-being. So that's a very powerful leadership transformational style to express. There's also a motivational mechanism. So this approach is looking at motivating employees, and employees become more confident and engaged, more willing to put in the time and effort if you're someone who can, enhance their motivation in a transformative way. Identification mechanism. This is going to approach or lead employees to personally identify with the leader and the leader's values and identify with them, as part of the team and the organization. So it's really buying into what the leader is selling. Social exchange mechanism, transformational approach that's going to improve the quality of exchange and the relationship between the leaders and the followers. Followers are also more likely to perceive that they are supported by the leader and the organization if they're, getting something out of this work situation. Justice enhancement mechanism. So there's another transformational approach that improves employees' fairness perceptions, motivates followers to contribute more and trust the leader, the team. Basically, the employee feels that the leader is taking care of them in a way that is giving them the proper salary, the proper tools, the proper respect and support, and they feel like they have been treated fairly. So if you feel like you've been treated fairly, you're more likely to to be more productive. Now, in general, organizations perform better when they have transformational leaders. However, transformational leadership is not always without some critics, some of whom badly claim that it doesn't work well. And they make claims that transformational leadership behaviors can be constructed, misconstrued, manipulated, and unfairly, generating power to inspire people. So if the leader becomes too charismatic, there could be the transformational leader can, if they tip over into a narcissistic approach a little too much, they may actually be counterproductive. So there's a fine line between when you're respected as a leader to where it goes to your head and now you're taking that leadership into a less productive place. Now, authentic leaders, this is somebody, when you say you're an authentic leader, your followers know what you believe and what you value. And they're going to act on those values and beliefs, the followers and the leader, openly and candidly. And the results, people have come to have more faith in them. So if you're authentic, meaning that you're real, you're true, that you've proven that, you're going to do what you say, then this is going to result in people having more faith in these leaders, and these leaders being able to get their employees to do things they may not felt they're capable of, or may not in normal situations wanted to do, but they're so inspired by this leader that they're willing to do it. Now, ethical, unethical leaderships, any leader has power, and power can corrupt. So hopefully leaders are good ethical role models that help to encourage that behavior in their followers. For example, if you have a manager who's a leader and you see them stealing, or you see them giving their friends free stuff, or you're seeing them bend the rules, why would you follow anything? Why would you not do the same? So if you want ethical followers, you have to be an ethical leader. So that's going to have a direct influence about how employees act themselves. So if you need to lead by example, have clear values, and back them up by your actions if you want your followers to be ethical as well. So and this is usually learned through example. When you're put in situations where you could easily been unethical or done something even slightly unethical, and you toe a very strong line about, no, that's not right, we have to, even if it's just this small thing, we can't do that, you just know it leads to bigger problems. This is what's going to really inspire your employees to be ethical as well. So, if you've ever had a leader who's unethical, you're either going to lose respect for them, or you're going to, use it as an excuse to be unethical yourself. Oh, look at the boss. He's taking a bunch of office supplies home. Well, I'll do the same thing. Um, so now, uh, a servant leadership, leaders who go above and beyond their self-interest and instead focus on opportunities to help followers grow and develop. So this is a leader who's basically looking out for your best interest and almost serving you as a follower to get you to need to go where you need to go. And this, characteristic, includes listening, empathizing, persuading, accepting, a mentorship role, developing, helping the followers develop their potential. So it's basically you're leading in a way that's going to build up the follower in a way that they're going to feel indebted to you or grateful to you, and therefore more likely to follow you in times when you need help. So that's really a rare leadership quality to have. Now, abusive supervision, this refers to a supervisor who's hostile, verbal, a nonverbal behavior. These supervisors that they may not like their job, they may be upset with their boss, and they take it out on you. So the job tension may get to them, the burnout may get to them. So this is where these leaders are they become abusive to their subordinates, almost are taking it out on you. And this is going to lead to low job satisfaction, low performance. So, if leaders are, have this abusive disposition, it's going to affect the health of the followers. They're going to feel depressed. They're going to feel exhausted. They're not going to like the constant tension. They're not going to like, the negative situation they're in. They have low job satisfaction. So this is something that, happens over time. A leadership may start as a good leader, but then just not rewarded by the company, or has, just a particular resentments, or maybe jealous of some of their followers. And they start to become more abusive in small things they say. It doesn't have to be really a very direct in your face abuse, like yelling at you, calling you stupid or something like that. It could just be subtle slights, talking behind your back, not being supportive, belittling you, making fun of you on occasion. So I think we've all experienced the abusive supervisor, and generally that's either going to cause you to leave or cause you to behave badly. It's just a really bad situation, and something that you want to get out of as soon as possible, whether it's changing jobs, changing your department into the company. But some companies have a negative work environment, or a work environment that, what's the word for it? I just remember, a toxic work environment. So it's when you work in an environment, it's so many problems on so many levels. The whole environment is just toxic. Get yourself out of that situation if you can, because it's just not going to result in anything good. Trust and leadership. So trust is, what is trust? It's a particular thing that exists when you agree to make yourself vulnerable to another person because you have an expectation that they will listen, respect your privacy, do what's best for you. And when the leadership has developed a trust with their employees, that trust can really develop a strong team. On the other side, when the trust is broken, it can have serious adverse effects on the group's performance. People are unlikely to look up to or follow someone they perceive as dishonest or likely to take advantage of them. So if you feel like your boss is not an honest person, they're most likely looking to take from you or take advantage of you. Then you're just not going to be that good of a follower, or the team and the leader is going to be not that good of a leader. So trust is one of the strongest indicators whether or not a leader-follower relationship will be productive. Okay, so the nature of trust, we have integrity, benevolence, and ability. and propensity to trust. And this usually can enable more risk-taking, information sharing, group effectiveness, and productivity. So trust isn't, solely about the leader. The characteristics of developing trust. Trust can be between two coworkers. It's not always between a leader and a coworker, but it's generally more powerful when the leader is trustworthy and has these characteristics. So if somebody's honest and truthful, that helps you help to build a better trust with them. So a trusted person has your interests at heart, and you know that they have your back, and and hopefully it works both ways. Now, when you have a trusting relationship with another employee or a boss, then you feel more empowered to take some risks in the way you're doing things to improve things. You're able to share more information and feel confident that you can share your information about what's going on, what you're seeing, what you believe, without being criticized or without being judged. So a leader sets this trusting tone, and hopefully the members will pick up on it and over time learn to trust each other and respond back with it. And this is going to enhance productivity because the more you trust somebody, the more willing, the higher level you'll be able to work with them on. Okay. So trust propensity, how likely is an employee to trust a leader? Trust and culture. Does trust look the same in every culture? Trust is different between different cultures. The role of time. We come to trust people by observing their behavior over a period of time, how they interact with us, how they interact with others, and regaining trust can be restored when we observe a consistent pattern of trustworthiness by someone who's been a past transgressor of that trust. So sometimes, for some people, trust can be won back. But these are just positive trust leadership characteristics. Now, in this attribution theory of leadership, it says that leadership is merely attribution people make about other individuals. So we attribute to leadership intelligence, outgoing personality, strong verbal skills, aggressiveness, understanding, and these at the organizational level, we tend to see leaders rightly or wrongly as responsible for extreme negative or extreme positive performance. So our understanding of leadership is, based on some demographic assumptions about leaders. So the research has shown that many individuals hold stereotypes of maybe have a stereotype of men having more leadership characteristics than women, which isn't true, of course. Although you might expect that this tendency to equate leadership with masculinity has definitely decreased over time. But the study suggests women perceive success as transformational leaders may be based more on situations. So the difference in race and ethnic and ethnicity-based leadership attributes may be one mechanism behind leadership's underemergence for women and people from ethnically diverse backgrounds. Can also be seen in a lot of these organizational behavioral polls. And the attribution theory suggests that is important is projecting the appearance of being a leader rather than focusing on actual accomplishments. So this is just how people perceived leadership in the past. And in today's world, leadership is changing. But in all cases, it definitely helps that people perceive you as a leader, and that you can get people to see you as a leader and then build off of that, where later on your accomplishments will help establish your leadership. But you have to start at some square one. Now, the experience and training are among the substitutes that can replace the need for leadership support or the ability to create a structure. So organizational characteristics such as explicit formalized goals, rigid rules and procedures, cohesive work groups can also replace some formal leadership. So basically having some documentation, having some structure, having some rules and regulations can help fortify leadership without ever having a person in a leadership role in some cases. And it makes it possible for leader behaviors to make more of a difference by having the structure in place. Now we look at leadership opportunities. Leadership opportunities, identifying, selecting leaders. So how do you identify a leader? Review specific requirements for position, consider personality tests, situation-specific experience is relevant. So it's very difficult to understand who's going to be a good leader, who's going to be a good leader for this role. And that's why they often look at your past work history, your past successes, and your personal interview to kind of get an idea of whether or not you have the personality traits to be to have the skills to be a leadership that would fit a particular organization. So each organization needs a slightly different leadership model, and it's often difficult to really select and identify people who are going to be in a leadership role. It's often easier for people to make it known or express their leadership potential in their actions and their words, and even in their willingness to take on new responsibilities. And then once you do have people who are in leadership roles, they should be trained and developed, and to be more effective leaders. And yes, lots of money is spent on leadership training and development at companies, and there are some things that have been able to, these leadership support has been able to make some leaders better. But if you're not innately a leader, intuitively, or just your personality doesn't have that leadership potential, the training is less effective. So generally, leaders become, if you're a born leader, you become more effective when this training is utilized. If you're not a born leader, the training is helpful, but it may just be a difficult road for you to, become an effective leader if you don't really have the innate qualities and attributes to be groomed into becoming a successful leader. Now, as far as career functions and the psychosocial functions, leaders often take responsibility for developing, current leaders should take responsibility, and often do take responsibility for developing future leaders. So a mentor is going to be a senior employee who's going to work with a less senior or less experienced employee, so as a protege, and mentoring a relationship to serve, career and psychosocial functions and advice. And successful mentors build a personal relationship and help to transfer some of these characteristics through mutual trust and have a confidence that this mentor is really there to help them grow and achieve what they need to achieve and for the betterment of the company. So it's really acting as a role model and hopefully leading by example to develop the characteristics and skills that will help someone become a more effective leader. It's basically sort of like an experience transference. Okay, so as far as managers, how can you utilize this chapter in leadership to be helpful? Well, as a manager, you have to realize that people who are more extroverted are more likely to be promoted to leadership positions. And a leader needs to do things. A leader needs to, have actions, show that they're working, show that they constantly need to be doing something to improve their leadership position. Leaders that sit back and do nothing aren't going to be respected, and results aren't going to be accomplished. Now, leadership roles, it's sort of, everybody has their own unique leadership role. It doesn't always fit into one category. And sometimes leaderships change how they act as leader depending on the situation. So the most important things as far as behavior and leadership should engage in is, initiating structure, having consideration for the company, the employees, reading the situation, and tailoring their leadership to motivate the followers for that particular situation to solve a particular problem. Now, leadership, hopefully will be strengthened or built upon a foundation of, successful transactions with employees. Being able to set goals, follow through with recognizing accomplishments. So oftentimes the leadership, a strong foundation is the transactional leadership that later can hopefully move more towards a charismatic or transformational leadership where they can inspire and motivate their employees to achieve greater things. And the tighter this relationship is, especially in the context of trust and past success, the more effective this leadership would be moving forward. Now, sometimes companies need to quickly realize that the destructive nature of abusive leadership, being able to spot when leaders are not acting in their best interest, are having bad results, or having bad behaviors, and establishing a relationship with either these managers are replaced, fired, or retrained, so that they don't play favorites, they don't belittle people, they don't make fun of people, they don't treat people unfairly, that this has to be really nipped in the bud quickly, other it can really spiral out of control and really be detrimental to the business. And trust is critical for a leader to be perceived as ethical, a leader to be perceived as having your back in a way that you feel that you can trust them, and which frees you up to work harder for them. You don't have to keep second guessing them or looking over your back, or you feel like the time you're putting in with this leader is going to be beneficial to both you, them, and the company. And the trust is a very difficult thing to ever recover from if that trust is ever broken. Different organizations have different cultures that sort of can interfere with leadership. Some organizations have toxic cultures. Some organizations are not good at supporting their leaders. And this is going to be detrimental to the bottom line of the company. And the company's going to miss chances to be more profitable when this occurs. And finally, when we talk about leadership, it's all about the perception. People can behave in ways that makes them appear like leaders. Otherwise, influential people may be passed up for a leadership position or promoted because they don't come off as a leader. So be mindful of your own leadership bias, your objective criteria as much as possible when making decisions, especially those involving identifying future leaders. So consider evidence-based leadership's selection, training, developing, mentoring programs to leverage the power of leadership in your organization. So really, basically, if you're more higher up in the organization, you already are a leader, it's really your job to seek out the new leaders, mentor the new leaders, promote the new leaders, help correct them when their leadership fails or is inappropriate. And this is what's going to lead companies. Successful leadership leads to successful companies. Okay, so that is chapter 12 on leadership. I hope you enjoyed the chapter, and we'll be talking to you soon. Take care.